Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media. We hope you have had a beautiful day and enjoyed moving forward with your goals. Today we have coming to the mic Constance Craig-Mason, who is the CEO and visionary of Concierge Financial Group and CFG Agency. She is a passionate international speaker, award-winning insurance broker, dedicated financial wellness coach, and an Amazon best-selling author. She was nominated for Financial Expert Speaker of the Year at the SpeakerCon convention in November 2019. Constance's goal is to marry positive beliefs, emotions, and daily money habits with financial literacy, thereby fostering a shift in her clients' financial well-being. Welcome, Constance.
Yes.
Thank you for
again. I think we met at the SpeakerCon.
Yes, I do remember. It's coming up on 1 year. Wow, it sped by.
Yes. So welcome.
Thank you.
How did you get started with all this good stuff that you do?
I got started January of 2009, believe it or not. So I was working in the healthcare field. I was actually a practice manager at the time. And ironically, it was a business opportunity that a friend of mine offered me. She said, you love people, you're helping people anyway, you love finances, and, I could show you how to get extra income, right? And so most people like that idea of extra income. And so I said, well, what's entailed? Like, what do I have to do? And she was like, well, you've already been doing it. You've been improving your life, and every time you improve your life, you share with people you know and love, and you tell them how to do it for free. And she's like, why don't you do that and actually make an extra income from it? So I was like, okay. I went to the meeting, but mind you, this short conversation was like 6 years in the making, because she had continued to ask me about it before that period of time. And I wasn't married previous to that. I had small children at the time. And it was just too much for me to even think about adding something else to my plate. But when she asked me this time in January 2009, I was married. My kids were a little bit older. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I go in, do the meeting, and I'm like excited. I'm fired up because it was exactly what she said. And I was like, well, how quickly can I get started? She's like, right away, So I get my license. It was life and health license in the state of Maryland, where I'm originally from. And I got that license in 2 weeks. Like, I hit the books. I hit the ground running. Like, I was out in the field with her every night of the week. So I was still working my full-time job in the healthcare field. And when I got off, I kissed the kids, kissed the hubby, and I was out the door. And I was, learning and growing in the field, hands-on training, literally sitting across the kitchen table from families. And as I was learning and growing, they were learning and growing, and I was earning that extra income that she talked about. So that was 11 years ago, and I have not turned back since.
I know that's right. So tell us exactly what you do.
So in a nutshell, I am a insurance agency owner. So I have my life and health. I have my PNC license. So PNC stands for property and casualty. So that's more like your auto, your home, your renters, your business policies, boats, that kind of thing. So then obviously, you know what life and health is. So I'm fully licensed in those areas. But beyond doing that, which is risk management, I also teach financial literacy and financial wellness. So financial wellness is along the lines of how you think and feel about money, and also how you begin to build wealth and independence. So beyond just your regular everyday budgeting, your regular everyday credit and insurance, the financial wellness piece is if something happens, right? Not death or anything like that, but if something comes up, how easily can I take care of it myself without having to ask a friend, ask a relative, or borrow money? How easily can I do that? And that's the barometer for your financial wellness. So I sit down and I talk with my clients about how can they build that up so strong, right? So that they are almost bulletproof, if you will, bulletproof, right? I try to get them to the point where they can be financially secure for the most part.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome, because I think that's an important thing, because many people are a paycheck away from homelessness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is definitely not the way to live.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we all know you live long enough, things are going to happen.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes due to no fault of your own. I mean, this pandemic is a prime example of that. You know, even if you were not ill, right? COVID did not directly affect your body or your household. You still may have the effects of it because maybe your job has shut down for precautionary measures and not that somebody was infected. And now maybe you're on unemployment, you're on layoff. And so that's not, most people need 100% of their income. And even that is a struggle, right? So imagine 2/3 of that income or less. And then they gave that extra $600 for a while, and then they took it away. And then now they're debating as to whether or not they're going to give it back and how much they're going to give it back for and how long that's going to be. And so that uncertainty is the worry that we talk about when we're thinking about financial wellness. That worry can turn into physical ailments. It can turn into depression. It can cause arguments in the household. Like, it really can set you ablaze. And it was nothing that you did for that to happen. It was no mismanagement of money. It was the world. Yeah. And we have to be prepared for things that we dare not even know exists, but yet it is. So.
Absolutely, because you're right. The pandemic has showed people a lot of things. You know, it has been something that none of us have ever seen before, and it's not your usual disruption.
Yes.
So, which brings more awareness on the fact that, you know, things happen out of our control, and this is totally out of our control.
Right.
So it's definitely needed. So when people come to you, you know, wanting to, you know, work on their finances, what does that look like?
Most of the time it's a consultation initially. And so I want to get an idea of what their money story is. We all have one, right? Whether you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth or you didn't, or you were somewhere in between, we all have experiences that go along with how we run our everyday budget, right? And so for myself, I know that I grew up in poverty. My mom didn't know much about money. Her mom didn't know much about money, and so on and so forth. And so I was taught how to pinch a penny early on, which I feel like was a good skill to learn, how to budget and how to make the ends meet and how to stretch your dollar. But as I got older, I started to feel like, you know, that was more of a poverty mentality, meaning that I did not expect more than enough. I did not expect wealth, right? I was just so focused on making this meet that, and that's it. And so when you think like that, you won't take risk. Right? So investments are just out of the picture for you. You don't believe in anything like that. And a lot of times doing things that help you grow money is how you accelerate your financial wellness. And so if you feel like you don't even have enough to make the ends meet, you certainly can't imagine a day where you don't have to worry about money at all. And so I had to change the way I was thinking about money, but I also had to get around people that live differently than I did. So when I was introduced to business, I got to be around people that were not worried about money. They did not mind taking risk for the potential of a reward. They did not mind investing in themselves, which was another thing I had to learn. So when I'm sitting down with my clients and they're saying they might come to me for credit issues, or they might come to me because they need insurance, there's usually one thing that triggers a person to have a conversation, and that's okay. But I'm not one-track minded. I look at the whole picture. And so when I began to ask questions, I'm not just asking, well, how much income do you have and how many expenses do you have coming out of that income? I'm more interested in, how did you grow up? What did you see in the household? How did you then operate your household? Was it based on what you saw, or did you do any research? Do you do anything differently? And so it gets their wheels turning too, as to like, wow, I do live just like my mom and dad lived, or no, I do things slightly differently, and here's the results of that. So I ask questions like that, right? And then yes, when it gets down to the nitty gritty of things, I need to see if there's any cash flow. So the cash flow is exactly what is left over, as let's say at the end of the month, after you've taken care of all your necessities and things. You have a little bit of play money as well. I believe that you should have a little bit of play money. Otherwise, you're going to start dipping in your necessities and go too far. So I believe that you build in a personal allowance in that spending plan. And once that's all said and done at the end of the month, is there any room? That's the cash flow. And what you do with that cash flow is what sets you up for the options. It's what sets you up for the more than enough. And then we look at, well, what do we do with that extra 200 or extra 500, whatever it is? What do you do with that so that now you can get to the place where if an unforeseen thing happens, like you take ill and you have to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, or if like in this pandemic situation, there was a long time between when a person applied for unemployment and when they actually received those monies. Like I still see people complaining that they haven't received all of their money. So in that gap between what you qualify for and what you actually have in your bank account, what do you do? Right? Do you have enough money saved to where you say, okay, yeah, they're going to give me a lump sum when it's all said and done, but I'm able to sustain myself until that happens. And so we typically say, 3 to 6 months of your expenses that you should have saved, not 3 to 6 months of your income, because that should be different. Those two numbers should be different, right? Your expenses should be less than what you bring home. And so it's a lot easier to accumulate the 3 to 6 months of expenses versus 3 to 6 months of income. And so if you can't start out doing that, let's say you only have $100 to $200 at the end of the month. Maybe you start putting away 25 of that, right? And you just do it consistently, right? Because you have to get in the habit of not using that money, because typically people will see that extra 100 or 200 and go out to dinner or go do something fun. And it's not to say you shouldn't have fun. It's just to say, hey, if we have a priority, then we give that money a job, right? Within that spending plan, we're giving that money a job, right? Instead of us just working every dollar per hour, we're giving this extra $100 a job. And if that job is to create the emergency fund, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Right? I'm not going to deviate from that because the end result is financial independence. So when I'm looking at my clients, I'm looking at where they are, but I'm also looking at where they want to go. Not where I want them to be, because my goals for my family is different than your goals for your family. And so that's what I can hold them accountable to, is their goals for their family. So it's really an ongoing conversation. It's never a, hey, we're done, because you should be evolving year after year. So it's an ongoing conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How frequently do you have these conversations with your clients?
It depends on what they're working on. So if they're working on their credit, I'm talking to them every quarter, right? I give them enough time to make the change, and then enough time for the bureaus to update, and then we can see the progress, right? Because that's data. All that is data. So we can see the progress in real time almost. But if it's just like an annual thing, hey, here's the insurance risk management stuff, we just review that annually. But if they have like a crisis situation where they're like, I don't know if I need to file bankruptcy or not, like I need help right now. Like I really don't have the money and these people are coming after me. Like I need to know what to do. Then that's a situation like we're meeting right away. We're getting something going, and then you take a breather. Okay. You take a breather, and then we meet in a couple of weeks. So it just really depends on where the client is.
Yes. What are some of the myths or fallacies that come up when you talk to people about their financial wellness? Like you said, it's not just about the dollars and cents. There's more to it. What are some of the things that you hear?
Oh my goodness. I hear people saying, well, some of the things that they say is like, I'll never get ahead because this is the way it is in my family. And I come from a family, like I said, that didn't know much about money either, but that doesn't mean that that has to be my life's journey, right? I get to decide. And I feel like people don't put enough stock in themselves making the decision and also themselves shifting their behavior so that they can get to where they ultimately say they want to go. It's no sense in complaining about where you are if you're not intending on doing anything about it, because that way you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time. And when you begin to complain, you're putting some power behind what you just thought, right? So when you say it out of your mouth, you're actually activating that thought, which gives it more power. So you're going to continue to see what you already thought. You're going to have more of the same. And so part of shifting your behavior is shifting your mindset. So I actually have an ebook called Financial Therapy, Change Your Thought Process and Change Your Life. And it's a really easy read. It's about 34 pages, but it talks exactly about that. What you think, you end up saying out of your mouth. And then that cycle then perpetuates what you see in your space, right? And so that instead of having a victim mentality, I don't have enough money, my parents didn't leave me well off, my boss hates me, whatever it is, instead of just putting more energy into that, yes, that may be true. I'm not denying that. However, what I'm saying is you have the ability to change it. And so when you take the accountability and when you take that place of power, now you go to, now what do I do? Versus, well, it's this way and it's no sense in talking about it, right? So thankfully, I have people that when I do share with them that perspective, they actually sit up, a little bit because they're like, I do have power, right? I can make the changes, and it's not big changes. It's little subtle changes that will impact you greatly when you look in 4 to 6 weeks. You're like, wow, I remember a time where the money would go into the savings account for my direct deposit. And before the next payroll, I already spent the $25, but now it's there. Matter of fact, it's $200 that's there. So it's just the little things that you get excited about when you make those subtle changes and you actually see it working. Just like when you go to the gym, right? It hurts like the next day. It's terrible. But when you look in that mirror and you see you got a little roundness right there or a little tightness right there, you're like, oh, it hurts so good. I'm going to go back tomorrow. I'm going to go back next week. It doesn't take a lot, right? But you need that mental shift and you need to actually do something, right? So the fallacy that it is the way it is and that's the way it's going to be, like that's the main one. And that's easily shifted because you can change it.
That's interesting because so many people have money myths that run in their heads. They have these stories that run in their head and it shows, in the way that they live, in the way that they handle money. And so to have someone who can sit down with them and actually pull that part out, because most times when you sit down, people start talking about the dollars and cents. And so it's like, almost like an addiction. It's not it
didn't start there.
That's not it. There's something underneath the water that's been going on for a long time.
It's a good point.
So I really like your approach. That's very interesting. You mentioned an ebook. Is there a way that our listeners could possibly get hold of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website that all of my books are there, but that ebook is on there. It's only $15, by the way.
Okay.
And so my website is www.concierge. So that's CONCIERGEFG, like Frank Girl. .com, and to see the books you / so www.conciergefg.com /shop, and you'll be able to see I have probably about maybe 4 ebooks on there and then some of the tangible books that I've also written.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ida.
I'm just excited because I love your approach Because you really, when you're talking about money, you really have to see what the mindset is around money first.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, now, you gave us a scenario about some of the things that people have told you. Do you work with them to remove that type of mindset? Because we all know people it takes time for them to really be able to get rid of those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, actually one of my good business coaches, Dr. Cheryl Wood, she says that transformation always starts with a transaction, right? And I love that quote because you can use that for anything that you're trying to shift in your life, right? Just like the example I just gave about, working out. Every January, people are calling New Year's resolutions or New Year, new me, all of this stuff. And, then what happens? The gyms, the health and wellness industry, they jump on it and they're like, hey, here's discounts on vitamins. Here's discounts on your memberships. Here's this, here's that. But if you don't make a transaction, meaning you don't sign up for the enrollment period that they have going on, or if you never show up to the gym, or if you never actually go buy the vitamins, or if you don't actually take the vitamins, you have to do something, right? Yeah. So it's good that you can get in your mindset that, yes, I want this change. I want to feel better. I want to look better. I want to be here for my grandkids. That's good, right? That's where it starts. But then if you just sit back on your couch with your feet up, it's not going to happen. Especially if you're sitting back eating cookies and donuts, it's not going to happen. So the same way with money, if you tell this insurance agent, this financial wellness coach, this insurance broker, whoever, the investment guy, you tell those people you want to live better, you want to put your kids to school, you want to save for retirement, you want to do all these things, but then you never set anything up. You keep canceling your appointments, or you get afraid, or you start the thing and then you cancel it after a couple of months. You're never going to get to that point of transformation because you haven't gotten to the point of the transaction. You have to accept the transaction, and whatever that transaction is, because there had to be a discussion before the transaction. There had to be a discussion about what it was and what it was for and what was the intent, what it was going to do. So when you agreed to, have them debit your account or whatever you agreed to, you had the mindset that this was going to provide some kind of transformation. And so when you agree to that, you then have to follow through because it's an agreement. Whatever you swiped, there's a you and there's a them. And in my case, that them might be the insurance company. So if you agree to pay the premium, then they agree to pay out the benefit. It's an exchange. So if you don't do your part, they can't do their part. And that's a transaction, right? So oftentimes I tell people, we can have this great conversation, but it goes nowhere if you say, okay, well, I'll get back with you. That was nice. You have to do something, right? So I can't tell you, it's been almost 12 years. We've had some people who will listen to your whole presentation, right? Financial literacy, products and services, the whole nine. Like your personality, it might be, you might have friends in common, whatever the case, and all that's fine and dandy. But if I walk out of here and you don't implement anything, then it was no sense in me coming. My whole goal when I sit down with people prior to the pandemic, right? We were sitting in front of people like one-on-one. But, my whole goal when I sit down with a person is to leave them better off than when I arrived. So if I cannot do that, then I have not done my job, right? That's the way I look at it, because I expect that you're going to not just be excited, but that you will have done something. Then I feel better because I helped you with this first step of transformation. If you don't do anything, then I haven't done my job and you're not going to get to where you want to be. And that was a waste of time, right? So I just really hope and pray that this pandemic has shifted the mindset that, yes, you need to be flexible right now. And with that flexibility, you have to do something different. Because if you're uncomfortable in this pandemic, you don't have the things that you need, you're struggling. It's not just about inconveniences, right? Because we want to go to the movies, we can't go to the movies. Okay, fine. It's not about that. But if you are struggling to put food on the table, or if you are struggling to put gas in your car, like that's a real thing. And if you never want to be in that position again, what are you doing right now before the world opens back up so that you never experience this again, so that your children never experience this again? Because if it's uncomfortable for you, it's that much more uncomfortable for them. And I felt mommy guilt before of not having money, right? I felt mommy guilt of having to work so much I don't see them. Never wanting to be in that position again. What did I do? I kept pushing forward. I invested in myself so that I could make more money. I'm doing things like these book projects so that I could leave a legacy, so that whether I'm here or gone, there is something they can pick up and still have to sell, right? Whether I'm here or gone. And so these are the things that build legacy. What we're doing now is building legacy, because if we feel like, you know what, I took a loss during the pandemic. I lost my job. I lost this. I lost that. What's the lesson? Okay, so now that you've learned the lesson, now you can begin building your legacy. So as you go from your loss to your lesson to your legacy. And that to me is worth more than anything in this world, because your children are watching that.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. And speaking of books,
Yes.
aren't you one of the authors in the Unmute Yourself?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
That thing just went to Amazon #1 bestseller.
I know. Congratulations.
It did. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit, but before we get to that, how can people contact? Let's.
Yeah. So I'm on social media all day, not just socializing, but I'm on there watching my business, answering questions, that kind of thing. So Constance Craig-Mason on Facebook. My business page also is on Facebook. So it's C. Craig-Mason, TA, T as in Tom, A as in Apple. I am also on Instagram, official C. Craig-Mason. And, they can reach me by phone, 717-527-3217.
Oh, okay, good. So let's tell us about your chapter in the book.
Okay. So Unmute Yourself was a book that came out September 12th, initially came out as an ebook. And so the host of the book, the visionary, Simone Walden, I think you guys may have recently had her on the show.
Yes.
She is a good friend of mine now. And we were actually talking back in May about me essentially unmuting myself, because I had gone a whole year and had like major health challenges, like back-to-back major health challenges. And so I was sharing with her on the Facebook Live back in May. I was like, this is my first public appearance since I've been homesick. And I had blood clots twice. I had pneumonia 4 times. I had 2 surgeries. I had something called thoracic outlet syndrome, like a bunch of things just kept happening every month, right? And this was my first opportunity to get back to work in a way. And so she was like, what did you learn in that process? And I was like, I was so focused on, because I'm a logical person, but I'm also a spiritual person. And so that battle, of my logic versus my spiritual. And I kept asking God, like, why? Like, why me? Why now? Why this? All of these major things happening right after I turned 40. I was excited about turning 40. I had a little grandson on the way. So I was excited about that. Like, everything was great. My business was thriving. I had speaking engagements. Like, I had books coming out. It was amazing. And then all of a sudden, I just kept getting sick back to back to back. So this is what I was sharing with her on the Facebook Live. And I was like, I was so focused on the diagnosis because it all kept coming back to the why. Why do these things keep happening? It was more related to like my lungs and my respiratory system. And then I kept getting the blood clots, which also went into my lungs. And I kept saying, well, if I had a pneumonia shot, why did I keep getting pneumonia back to back? Mm-hmm. And I never had any heart issues, never had any blood issues. And come to find out, I had a genetic clotting disorder that I would have never learned about had I not got the clots and lived to tell the story. So I was able to get my daughter tested and found out that she has the genetic clotting disorder too. And she was pregnant at the time. So they say that, pregnant women are prone to clot anyway, right? Especially in postpartum. So we found out before she delivered, because I had gone through it, got her tested. And so they were able to put things in place so she would be fine. So I was glad about that why. Like, I got sick, got the discovery, protected my daughter. I could get that part, but I still didn't understand the rest of it. So I'm like, why is this happening? It took daggone near a year for me to be able to let that go. Because sometimes we just don't get the why. We don't get it, right? And my logical man is like, no, 1 + 1 is 2. And that's what I know. And it wasn't adding up. And what I revealed to her on the show was, God did not care about all of that. He just wanted me to align myself back to gratefulness. Mm-hmm. All of the things he had already brought me through in my life, all of the things that he had already done on my behalf. Not that I forgot, but I just was in a place of go, 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 go. And I had stopped just realizing that if he never did anything else, he had already done enough. And so when I was sick, I was just asking God to save me. Like, just don't take me out, right? Just, I want to see my family. I want to see my kids. I want to do more. And so when each of these scary things happened, he answered those prayers. And I was still asking for a explanation of why this and why that. And he's like, you're asking me to save you, and I'm saving you every time. And you're still asking for more whys. Like, chill out. And so I told her, I was like, I am grateful to be alive. I don't care what germ, I don't care. I am grateful to be alive. I am grateful to be able to tell my story. And so she was like, that's it. She was like, I think you would be great for the Unmute Yourself book that I have coming out. She didn't even have it up and running yet. This was just, her wanting to do it. So I'm like, okay. I was thinking that I was going to talk about that journey, that health journey, and what I discovered. It did not end up being the things that I talked about. I ended up talking about a very pivotal conversation that I had with my husband about feeling unmuted before our marriage and in the marriage. Now, mind you, I have a great marriage. We've been together. We just celebrated 15 years of marriage. We've been together 21 years, right? But there was some hurt deep down in me that I had long buried that got triggered one day, right? It was right around the time that the book was going to be, coming to be. And I had got triggered by a situation, and it reminded me of the old stuff. And so I had a conversation with my husband about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. And I just let him know everything that was inside of me. And that is what I shared about in my chapter. It was like being a fly on the wall for that conversation. And so I had shared in the chapter that, I had daddy issues, right? A lot of us have daddy issues. And I brought my daddy issues into my marriage. And then whatever I felt with my husband prior to us getting married, that was there still. And so I was able to express to him, I think it was back in May. Yeah, May. It was my birthday month. All types of stuff was going on in May. But yeah, it was at that time that all of this stuff came bubbling up to the surface, and I had a decision to make. My decision was, am I going to allow this to break up my marriage? Because it's coming up for a reason. Am I going to allow it to break up my marriage, or are we going to fight for the marriage? Right? And so the conversation that he and I had that night is what I put in the book. And then I actually put like tips and strategies and tools and things that have worked for us over time, and that I'm going to tell y'all, he was happy to work with me on the situation. But, we were able to put those helpful tips in there because ultimately, again, that was the purpose. It wasn't just bubbling up just to dump on somebody. It was bubbling up so we could identify and do something about it, right? And so Unmute Yourself came out like September 12th. And then that was the ebook version. It got great reviews, great responses. We did do like a period of time just before the launch where people got to read our chapters and give us feedback. Feedback was great. And then, so we did the ebook, and then she recently at October 1st, put it out on Amazon as the hardback copy and the Kindle version. And that went to Amazon, #1 best-selling. So we were super excited about that, I tell you. But what I originally thought I was going to talk about did not make it in the book. And what I did talk about, people were like, so it ended up working out good.
Yes, we are definitely happy for the stories that we've heard thus far. You ladies are so courageous to be able to share your truth and be able to be a light for other people.
Yeah.
And we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, and I thank you for allowing these ladies another platform to share their stories and, you know, be an example that it doesn't matter how you start, it matters what you do with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, Ruth, go ahead. I can see it all over your face.
No, I'm good. I just really so much appreciate your showing us both sides of you. The part that's very logical and has the numbers down and can talk about that, but also the other very warm side of you that, you know, there's a person who lives here. She's living her life. She's experiencing, but she brings it all together. And actually, you bring it together even in the work you do because you care about the people that you're working with. You're not just there to get their money. You want to help them change their lives.
Absolutely.
That's what I get from you. And I hear the analysis that you went through with writing this chapter.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's the same kind of love and creativity and warmth that said, okay, there's something going on here. And to hear that it bubbled up in May, of course, and I keep saying this pandemic has done more to, if you're paying attention, it has done more to bring things to the surface so that you can let go of them, work through them. Because usually we're so busy running. We just run, do. All of a sudden we had to stop. And guess what? We had to deal with self. And some of us had to deal with self within a relationship. And that's, I think, many people are still grumbling about this, but I think that's one of the benefits of the pandemic. A lot of good things have come out of it. And I think many people will come out of this phase that we're going through very different.
I totally believe that I am different. Now, I was going through my health challenges when the pandemic came about around March, right? So I had been sick from the previous May up to that point in March, right? And then I was already having the respiratory issues. I'd already had the surgery with my lung, all of that. So I was already in the house, right? Before everybody else got locked in, I was already in the house. Then the people got put in the house because especially March through May, people really didn't know what to do, right? They didn't know, we didn't have a protocol for this thing. All we knew was sanitizer and mask and stay in the house. That's all we knew. And so when that happened, I'm like, oh, I was starting to feel a little bit better. I thought I could go outside and play. And it's like, no, you can't. You're in the house with everybody else. So it was like, really? Right? And so I was looking at people because they was just having to be cooped up and I had already been cooped up. But I'm like, what y'all talking about? Like, come join me, right? We could do Zoom. We could do, because now everybody's in the house. And so we joked about it because, it was just me being like, aha, y'all in the house with me now. But people talked about 2020 as if it was like this cliche thing, right? About 2020 vision, when January came, it was like 2020 vision and it's new me and all this stuff, right? We were not prepared for everything that bubbled up with this pandemic, all the disparities that were already there for African-American people. All that stuff was already there. Now we get to see the disparities in who gets access to healthcare and who does not, right? How much does this cost versus you now not having a job? You were already struggling before the pandemic. Now you really can't afford the things that you absolutely need because now you got to buy stuff in bulk and then put it in the house for however indefinitely. You don't know when you're coming out of the house. And now you got to buy food in bulk and now you're unemployed.
I
So it
know.
just really shed a light on what we were already struggling with. Now you got to get along with the people in your household. Now you got to be a teacher to your kids, and you probably didn't even go to the PTA meetings. It's like you have to literally, everything that you knew is changed, right? How you go to the grocery store, how you get gas. Now you have to be wife, mother, teacher, counselor, all this in one.
Yeah.
And you still scared of the germs. So it's like your mind, like what is happening to our minds in this process of this 2020, right? So we thought about, how can I be a new person and see things differently in 2020? Oh, we're seeing them differently. We're seeing way more police brutality. We're seeing, because we're home, right? We can watch the videos. Before, we might have been at work and don't have time to be on our phones. We're home all day looking at the timeline and seeing this stuff unfold in front of us live or whatever's going on. So it's like it really allowed us to see in real time people's hurt and pain. I mean, I recently saw a video where a little kid was on the thing, and his parent got killed. Like his mom got shot.
Wow.
He was logged into school. And it's like these issues, these mental health challenges, substance abuse, not having enough money, being discriminated against, all of this stuff, it was already there. But now it's compounded, because we're seeing it more, and it's happening all day, every day, right? Mm-hmm. And Congress is fighting about stimulus checks, and they're fighting about what's going to be best for President Trump, his election, versus what's going to be best for the people beyond the election, right? I watch that stuff every day, all day. I really do. I watch politics. I never cared. I have to admit, I never really cared about politics 4 or 5 years ago. I really didn't care. But like now it matters. Every single thing that's happening in Congress matters as close as your kitchen table. It matters. Because they could literally press a button and now you have money or you don't. Like, you should be paying attention to what the House of Representatives is doing and what the Senate is doing and what that does. Can Trump just do things, or does he have to go through Congress first? Like, you have to really ask these questions and watch to pay attention, because some things he can do and some things he cannot do. He just really doesn't have the power to do. Now, he'll say he can do it. Mm-hmm. But he can't do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so when you're just watching things or watching what people type on their timeline and they don't know anything about politics, right? You get your hopes up and then it doesn't happen. Now you're frustrated. Take the time to research for yourself. Take the time to dig in and see, what does this decision that they just made, how does that affect me in my state? It may apply, it may not apply, but you have to take this time to see what is going to work for your household. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. Aside from, my work stuff, I've literally been paying attention to politics.
Absolutely. So again, girl, we definitely got to have you back, because you are definitely, yes. I love the conversation. I love your spirit. I just love who you are. So thank you so much for being on our show. Yes. And before we wrap up, one more time, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So Facebook is the best way. Constance Craig-Mason on Facebook, or C. Craig Mason TA is my business page on Facebook. And I'm on Instagram. I always mess it up. Official C. Craig-Mason on Instagram. And my phone number is 717-527-3217.
Excellent.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much, Constance,
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I couldn't get on sooner. I would have loved to be on sooner with you guys.
No problem. You have certainly given us a lot to think about and information that we need. Yes. So I look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, absolutely.
And thank you. Just thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome. You guys be safe, please.
You too.
You too. Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV. Through Just Minding My Business, dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself.
Visit jmmb.asistercircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Thank you to the amazing women of A Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.